Hi guys, Danny here. Today we'll be taking a look at a drone. This is the HUBSAN H109 X4. It's using brushless motors. This was sent to me for review from HUBSAN, so I appreciate that. As always, there'll be a link down in the description if you want to pick one of these up. Now let's jump straight into this. What's interesting about this drone is it doesn't have any special features such as GPS, altitude hold, or anything like that, so it's slightly different from most of the drones I review. This is a lot more of a manual flyer, and you get a lot more control than you would with a drone with these smart features, because they often really aggressively try and hold their position, their altitude, and so on. So this is definitely more of a fun flyer. It is coming in at about £80 at the time of filming if you pick one of these up from Amazon, which might sound quite expensive considering it doesn't have a lot of the smart features that some of the other drones have, but once I explain a little bit more, I actually think it is really good value for money. I do like the design of this drone. It doesn't stand out massively in any way compared to a lot of others, but it's very solid and feels nice and well made. Besides the battery compartment on the back, which HUBSAN have used for a lot of their drones, which I'm not really a fan of, it does make getting the battery in and out very easy, but it just feels a little bit cheap the way it clicks into place, and it's a little bit flimsy. We are using a 2300 mAh battery, which should give us a 16 to 18 minute flight time. I'll update you on that after my flight test coming up. So you can see here the battery compartment on the back. As I was saying, I'm just not a huge fan of it. It just feels a little bit flimsy. This design they use, I mean, none of the batteries have ever dropped out when I've been flying, and I've never had any actual issues, but it just isn't my favorite design. Let's leave it at that. There is also lights underneath that are nice and bright, and you can see them clearly even in daylight, which you will see in my flight test. I was able to just about fit this in a pretty small backpack, so if you are looking for something really portable, this doesn't fold up, so it might not be for you in that aspect, but it is still small enough that you can take it pretty easily to a field or something. Now here's where I think you get the value with this product. At £80 you may say, well, it doesn't have many smart features, but the controller that it comes with is probably one of the best I have used at this price point. You can just tell this is a really good quality controller when you first pick it up to when you're actually flying with it. It does give you a good range, and the sticks just feel really nice and precise when you're flying this drone. You feel like you have really finite control over the drone and what it's doing at all times. It feels really nice and responsive, and the sticks just feel really nice in the hand to use. I felt like I had a really great deal of control when flying, so big thumbs up for the controller. The controller does take 8 AA batteries, which is the most I've seen. You pull this part out and there's another 4 slots behind. And of course we also get our charging equipment. We get this little power brick here and also our plug. Starting up the drone is nice and simple. You power on the controller first. Once that's done, you then connect up the battery on the drone. You'll hear some beeps and you'll see that it's connected on the controller. Just follow the instructions in the manual, and then from there you're ready to go. You pull the sticks down and out and it will engage the motors. As soon as I took this drone off, I had an absolute blast flying it. Being used to mainly flying GPS drones that have a ton of features that keep you balanced in the air, keep you in position, hold your altitude, it can become a little bit boring flying those types of drones unless you're using them for photography, which is what most of them are designed for. But drones like this is definitely where you want to go if you just want to have a bit more excitement, because you have such a high level of manual control. You can really throw these around, cutting the power and then whacking it right on again just as the drone is about to hit the ground. It really is a lot of fun. Of course you do have a little bit more risk, and I suggest if you haven't flown a drone before, you do take things slowly if you pick up a drone like this, because it doesn't really have any band-aids to keep you in place and make sure the drone doesn't just fly off. So one thing that often takes a little while to get used to is the orientation of the drone, especially if it is a little bit of a distance away from you. Sometimes it can be hard to know which way it's facing, but that was one really nice thing about this drone, is it does have really bright lights on it, so you can quite clearly tell which direction it's facing in unless you're pretty far away from you. But I would always suggest if you're flying a drone like this, you keep it within line of sight and also stick to any regulations that there are. There is a fair amount you can do with the controller for this drone in terms of adjustments and modes, but I'm not going to go into that in depth in this video. What I will say is when you first turn it on, the standard setting that it's in I feel isn't really adequate for the speed that this drone is capable of. So the pitch and yaw just isn't enough when you're taking this around at a high speed, especially if you want to change direction at the last second, it can be a little bit too slow and it might get you into trouble. But if you hit the enter button at the bottom right, it will be put into the expert mode, and this gives you a lot greater of control for the pitch and the yaw. So this is going to enable you to do some really cool maneuvers and throw the drone around a lot more. Even so, I would have liked a little bit more control, because this drone does have a lot of power. It's not going to keep up with something like the MJX Bugs 3, which is pretty ridiculous, but this does definitely have a lot of power behind it. You really can throw this thing around. It's just not quite as nippy as some smaller, lighter drones. Back onto the controller again, this is probably one of the best controllers that I have used, just in terms of the raw feel. I really felt like I had a lot of finite control with this drone. It felt incredibly responsive, and at all times I just felt like I had a great deal of control, which can sometimes be a problem with drones that I've tested in the past, but not with this one. I really enjoyed throwing this around and just having a lot of fun with it. Now, the battery life wasn't too bad. I got about a 16 to 17 minute flight time, which is right around what was advertised, which isn't too bad. I would have liked a slightly longer flight time, but you could always pick up an extra battery for one of these. They do take quite a while to charge, at roughly 2 to 2.5 hours. I had a lot of fun flying this drone. I have no problems recommending it to any of you out there. What I would say is, if this is your first drone, it might not be the most ideal, because it does have a steep learning curve and you will need a bit of experience to fly this to its maximal potential. But if you have a fair bit of experience, this is a lot of fun to fly. It doesn't have any fancy features, but just in terms of enjoyment, I would really recommend this drone, simply for the fact that it is a lot of fun to fly. As always, I'll put a link down in the description if you'd like to pick one of these up. I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more videos like this one, and of course I will see you in the next one.